All right, and we're back. Welcome to one more time. Hubie and Fallati here at Nissan of Cool Springs. Of course, I'm Paul Huber, your pal Hubie, and
Eric Fallati. Go Vols.
that's right, my man Eric is sporting his UT orange today proudly.
Yes, sir.
They had a really surprisingly good season. We have a lot to talk about today. We're going to talk a little bit about the seedings for the men's NCAA tournament. And then we'll talk, of course, about some of the surprises, teams to watch for, and then we'll probably talk about some of the acquisitions the Titans are going to be signing today. What do you think, Eric?
Oh, I could not be more impressed with what the Titans did. The signings that we got, the players we signed of these new long-term contracts, I think they just will inhabit and increase our chances of making the playoffs and going further in the playoffs next year. I really do.
Yeah, the quick signings. We had Malcolm Butler.
Yes.
Of course, he was on that New England team and was sat during the Super Bowl.
Yes, and because of his sitting during the Super Bowl, a lot of people tend to forget that he saved the Super Bowl on the goal line against the Seahawks 3 years ago.
Broke my heart.
Yeah, mine too. But
also cost me about $1,000. So.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
but anyway, but that was
yes.
a great Super Bowl.
It was,
also,
yeah.
We picked up a couple of cornerbacks. One of them, Malcolm Butler.
Yes.
And then also,
we also got Dion Lewis to accommodate Derrick Henry in the running back area, and I think Lewis is going to make an immediate impact because he was the leading rusher for the Patriots in the final 4 games last year.
Absolutely, and you know what? This is going to be. I like what what John Robinson is doing for the Titans right now.
Yes.
And I'm really anxious to see how this team shapes up as we go into the 2018 season.
Yeah.
All right, so quick mention. Mm-hmm. The Predators are absolutely on fire.
Wow, are they ever? And it was so fun watching them win 10 in a row the last 2 weeks. And I have no doubt in my mind that Mike Fisher's return to the ice was a contributing factor, even if just slightly. His return to the ice was a contributing factor to them winning the way they've been winning the last 2 weeks. And it's too bad that the loss had to take place last Saturday, but I think that'll work good because we are now tied with Tampa Bay for the very top spot in the NHL, and we want that home ice advantage in the playoffs. And the fact that we went ahead and lost the game at this point will help us in the playoffs and helping us understand that if we take anything for granted, something like that can happen. And I'm sure Peter Laviolette has already reminded them of that. So I think we're still in a very good position to return to the finals and bring that cup to Nashville this year. They are hot as a firecracker.
Well, so now we're going to get into the big dance. We have our Power 5 winners of their conference tournaments. You had Kansas that defeated Kansas State. Mm-hmm. Kansas is the number 1 seed in the Midwest. Mm-hmm. In the Big Ten, Michigan ended up winning that tournament, and they beat their arch rivals, Michigan State, along the way. Yes. Mm-hmm. In the ACC, we have Virginia, which is a number 1 seed in the South.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Then we have in the Pac-12, Arizona. Of course, they also got a high seed, but they were not a number 1. In the Big East, 2 number 1s, Villanova and Xavier.
It's amazing.
Yep, Villanova, number 1 in the East. Xavier, number 1 in the South. And then finally, the other big Power 5 conference winner, Kentucky, who beat UT, who at the beginning of the season, they're not using this as an excuse, and I like that. But no one at the beginning of the season saw this coming. But for UT to have given up such a big lead at the beginning of the game and to fight back and even have the lead, deep into the second half. But my hat's off to Kentucky. Congratulations.
Mine too. Uh-huh.
And of course, go Big Orange.
Yes, sir.
Big Orange actually got a fantastic seed in the big dance. And looking at my notes here, were they a number 3 seed?
Yes, they are.
They are a number 3 seed. So they got a very good seeding. And Kentucky, actually, they ended up being a number 5 seed?
Yes, number 5. But so, no matter what seed Kentucky gets, they're still Kentucky. They're dangerous. Yeah.
I think Kentucky kind of got a raw deal in that they're one of my surprises in that I thought that they should have been seeded higher. And I think UT ended up right where they should be.
Exactly. Well, Tennessee was expected to get a number 3 seed because they won the conference championship in the regular season, tied with Auburn, that is.
Absolutely.
And,
Now, Auburn
yes,
had a great
yes,
season.
They did. And Auburn, unfortunately for them, they showed a lackluster effort against Alabama, and it cost them in the SEC tournament.
It certainly did. You can't take anybody for granted.
Yeah, and so I think what enabled Auburn to be what brought them down to a lower seed was that not so impressive performance against Alabama. But Kentucky is the team to beat in that conference. They always are. They know how to turn it up at tournament time, and they proved that Sunday.
Absolutely.
So,
and not only that, it's hard to beat a team 3 times in one season.
It is. I was hoping it would happen, but I knew the odds were against it. Yeah.
Now, a couple of I went through the brackets and made some interesting notes. One of the things that I thought was kind of I was surprised that UCLA didn't automatically make the dance, and they had to play one of the play-in games, but they proved me wrong because they lost to St. Bonaventure's.
Yes.
The Bonnies.
Yes. And St. Bonaventure, I mean, you have these play-in teams, as St. Bonaventure is this year. I mean, play-in teams are not to be taken for granted. That may sound a little out of the ordinary, but they can be a threat. Virginia Commonwealth University proved to us back in 2011 that play-in teams are just as deserving to be in this tournament as anybody when they made that improbable run to the Final Four that year.
And again, this play-in wasn't for a 15 or 16 seed. This particular play-in was for an 11 seed.
Yes.
So they both were quality teams. So the other thing, the other notable teams that are on my radar, Gonzaga, you can't overlook them.
No.
Mid-major, but man, are they good, and they are nailing the threes right now.
The national runner-up last year. Let's not forget that.
I rode them all the way to the final, and I actually thought they were going to win last year, but they're having another good year under Mark Few, a great coach out there in Spokane, Washington.
Yeah, they are a team that makes very few mistakes.
Now, another mid-major that I absolutely love, Wichita State, the Shockers.
Yes, And they live up by their nickname. They can shock anybody out there at tournament time. Wichita State can.
I look for them to make perhaps an Elite 8 run this year.
I do. Wichita State, they're one. Let's not forget, 4 years ago, Wichita State was undefeated, and they ran into Kentucky in that year's second round and got beat.
That was a buzzsaw.
It was. And but they are Wichita State. And you never know what you're going to get from them at tournament time. So,
a couple more of my surprises this year, and I'm glad to see them in the tournament. Texas Tech,
yes,
out of the Big 12. Michigan State, I think they're going to be a team to watch, as well as Cal State Fullerton. I think that this is a team you cannot go to sleep on because they will beat you. They play pretty solid defense. Another team, usually when you talk about the state of Nevada, you're talking about UNLV. But Nevada, they've got a really good shot. They're a 7 seed, very solid. And then, of course, Auburn, I think they're going to wake up, and Butler.
And the fact you mentioned that Nevada's a 7 seed, and the reason they can be a threat is because South Carolina was a number 7 seed last year and made that run to the Final Four. So, it's tournament time. All these teams you've mentioned can be a threat at any time along the way. Now,
do you have any other teams that I didn't mention already that might surprise somebody, Eric?
Well, I feel like this year Kansas recently has been known to fold in the second round, maybe the Elite 8, but Bill Self is as great a head coach as they come in college basketball. And I feel like this year Kansas could make that improbable run to the championship game, not having been there since they won it in 2008 when they beat Memphis. I like Kansas and Virginia in the championship game, with Virginia winning in overtime.
Yep. Well, I'm going to reserve making any calls that deep into the tournament because I really haven't done a lot of research. But one of my other surprises in the tournament, Kansas State.
Yes.
K-State making it to the conference final against Kansas.
Yes. And Kansas had to work for that victory. The fact that Kansas State made it to the conference championship just proves again, it's called March Madness for a reason.
All right, Eric. Well, that's it. We've rambled on long enough. Thanks so much. If you have made it all the way into the video, I am Hubie, and this is Fallati, and we're talking sports here at Nissan of Cool Springs. We're hoping to check in with you next week with upsets and Cinderella stories, if I could actually spit that out. But we're looking forward to an update next week. Thanks a lot, guys. See you next week.
Enjoy March Madness. It all starts tomorrow morning. Can't wait.
Bye.
Bye-bye.